Prithvi Singh Azad had been involved in a terrorist plot against the British. He was jailed, spent many years in the cellular prison in the Andamans, where he started reading about non-violence. And said, when he came out of jail, he said, let me meet the prophet of non-violence. Maybe the method of violence that was taught to me by the revolutionaries in the Punjab won't work. So he makes a trek to Sewagram, where he lives in the ashram, and Miraben falls desperately, hopelessly in love with him. Now there were two problems that Miraben faced when she had this kind of romantic interest in Prithvi Singh Azad. The first and possibly lesser problem was that it was not reciprocated by Prithvi Singh Azad. Now that's an experience most of us in this room are familiar with. Man or woman, boy or girl, we've all been there before. But the other and more serious problem was that Gandhi sternly disapproved. Gandhi felt a betrayal. Not a betrayal of, not a kind of male ego thing that you like me and now you like some other guy. Not that. No. He felt betrayed because according to the laws of the ashram, romantic, emotional, sexual attachments were forbidden. So clearly she had eaten salt in her diet. Probably on the slide. But Gandhi was really upset and Miraben was devastated. Partly by the fact that Prithvi Singh Azad was not interested in her, and more so by the fact that her great and beloved Bapu was sternly disapproving. Now when Indians of that generation, and Miraben was an Indian by then, are devastated and disheartened, what do? They go to the Himalaya. And that's actually what Miraben did. She left Sewagram, went 1,000 miles north, made a home on the banks of the Ganga, first near Rishikesh, which is where the Ganga comes out of the hills. Then she followed the course of the Ganga. At Devprayag she turned west, went up the Bhagirathi and established an ashram at a height about 7,000 feet in the Garhwal Himalaya, where she lived from the 1940s to the 1950s, from about 1945 to 1959. And where she did extraordinary pioneering work in the environmental field. Miraben was the first person to talk about the disappearance of the oak forest of the Himalaya and the conversion of the mixed species into monocultural stands of pine. She was the first person to attack large dams as possibly being destructive. She was the first person to warn about the danger of the overuse of chemical fertilizers. She was one of India's great pioneering, unacknowledged environmentalists, and that's largely been forgotten. And she wrote persistently to Jawaharlal Nehru, our old comrade in the freedom struggle, Rajendra Prasad, another old comrade who was the president, and as she rightly noted, they told her that they had passed on her letters to the concerned officials. But nothing seems to have happened. But her writings are valuable. Her writings on the Himalaya, on the ecological problems of the Himalaya, are a vital resource for us to recover today. In 1959, she was taking a walk somewhere in the Bhagirathi Valley, and Beethoven came back to her. And she got up, left India, and went to Vienna, and spent the last 20 years of her life in the woods near where Beethoven composed his last works. Now, quite extraordinary. If there is any young or not so young historian or biographer in this room who wants to write a life of Miraben, I promise to get them a publisher. And with luck a film contract too. You tell me who will play Prithvi Singh Azad. But it's a wonderful and moving story of a life lived on its own terms, like that of Comrade Azad, following the inner truth, sometimes in pursuit of an aesthetic musical passion, and other times in pursuit of a larger goal of political and social justice for the Indian people. Now I've spoken of Palwankar Balu, whom I know of as a cricket historian. I've spoken of Miraben, whom I know of because of my interest in Gandhi. And let me turn now to characters I have met. I've been quite lucky, extraordinarily fortunate, I would say, to meet a whole range of quite remarkable and unusual Indians. Madhav, in our conversations leading up to this day's meeting, told me that I asked him what his father thought about Mahatma Gandhi. And he said that will take a long discussion. And I can kind of understand that, because I've always believed that inside every thinking Indian, there's a Marxist and a Gandhian fighting for supremacy. And, these are very complicated matters, Marx and Gandhi. But that mother said, let's not go to that. But my father admired Jawaharlal Nehru. Now, which is actually something I like, because I admire Jawaharlal Nehru too. And I may be the youngest Nehruvian in India today. I'm well past 50, by the way. But the younger generation, for some reason, has their heads filled with all kinds of crazy propaganda about Nehru. Which another time to discuss why that is so. But I was delighted when I heard that Comrade Chavan admired Nehru. And I recalled a remark about Nehru, made by Nehru. Nehru once said, he said, India is home to all that is truly noble and truly disgusting in the human experience. Now, some people, it's true probably of every state in India. Maharashtra is home to all that is truly noble and that is truly disgusting in the human experience. But since we are here today to celebrate a noble and remarkable and outstanding life, I thought I would recall other noble and remarkable and outstanding lives. I would not deal with the darker side of Indian history, Indian society, Indian politics. And in the spirit of that remark by Nehru, and in the spirit of this occasion, I thought I'd speak about some extraordinary Indians who embody the best values of our republic. And I thought I'd end by speaking a little bit about the most extraordinary Indian I've ever known, personally. There's a long, I said, I've lived 5 decades on this planet, the Doon School notwithstanding. I have travelled to every state, almost every state of this union. I call myself a Nehruvian Indian, which means according to my enemies, which means according to me, I'm at home everywhere in India, which means according to my enemies, I'm at home nowhere in India. But among the remarkable Indians I have known are Chandi Prasad Bhatt, Mahashweta Devi, Vincent Joshi I mentioned. I can talk about cricketers, musicians, social activists, many people, some people in this room. As it happens, some of the most remarkable Indians I have met are in this room, and they're not necessarily only on the podium. But let me end, if I was to say who is the most extraordinary Indian I have met, I would say his name was Shivaram Karand.